Rightio, over the ditch with a different co-host tonight, or today. Maddie Markham is gone, but catching up with Brad Steele. Firstly, welcome back to Campbell's Comments, but on a different show. Brad Steele, firstly, welcome, mate.
Yeah, great to be back, Paul, and hopefully I can adequately fill the shoes left by Matt for this session.
Got you. I've been a little bit cheeky in a way, but you've just been announced as the new Harness Racing New Zealand CEO. I think you start, I probably should ask you that one off air, but I think you start about the 1st of July.
Yeah, that's right, Paul. Yes, 1st of July is the official start date. I can't wait.
Yeah, which is going to come around very quickly. It's 3 weeks away.
Yeah, it's a couple of weeks away, and I have to find accommodation yet. So there's a bit of a burning platform there for me to get some accommodation as soon as possible.
Ring up Tom Patterson. He'll watch. He owns Duchess Megxit. Don't you worry about that. He'll be watching this. And the Commodore Hotel, I can thoroughly recommend it. They spoil me when I go over there, so they'll look after you for a start. That's for sure. Until you find accommodation. Not going to be a travel guide, but it's a beautiful city to be looking for houses in, isn't it, Christchurch?
Yeah, it is, Paul. I was over there just last week, and I took my wife and I for a bit of a drive around the place, particularly out to the Rolleston area, just to get a really good grasp. That's where a lot of the harness racing trainers are, and yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world. I've been there before, but my wife hadn't been there. So yeah, fantastic place. Getting a little bit chilly at this time of the year, but I think we can cope with that.
Canberra sent me a text message, a screenshot about 3 weeks ago. -9 in parts down south, mate. Good luck.
Yeah, -9. I was there a few weeks ago. It was -2. I have had the pleasure of being down at Invercargill during a winter, so I know just how cold it can get right down the deep south, Paul.
It's a beautiful part of the world, and we will cover off on all of that because there's a lot of challenges for you going forward. But I suppose the process you had to go through, it's not as simple. There was lots of rumours circulating around that you'd got the job, but I think it was last Thursday. Officially, you met with the board, and I believe even at that point, you still had to be ticked off by the board.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. No, look, I'd say it's probably safe to say, we certainly all had a good going over through the process, and there's probably 3 or 4 parts to the process. And yeah, you're right. It was only last Friday that the board gave consent to offer myself the role. So it was only locked in late last Friday.
Did you enjoy it? And I say that it's probably one of the things, I suppose, you go for a job, and then once you get there, do you ever actually look back? Like, have you had 5 seconds to look back over the whole process and, potentially in the future see things that you maybe do different if you do look for another job or along those lines? Did you actually enjoy the process?
Yeah, look, I think I did enjoy it, Paul, but it's probably fair to say I've probably only had 3 job interviews in 30 odd years. So despite that, there was still a little bit of anxiety there, and it is a big, important role and carries lots of great responsibility and accountability. So yeah, I did enjoy the process once it was all over, I must admit, but it was extremely thorough, which it needed to be for this role. Yeah,
it did indeed, and there's some exciting stuff, and we will touch on that in a little bit. For a lot of the New Zealanders watching this, and even the Australians potentially watching it, we know you now through the Creek, and we'll touch on that in a sec. But you are from the banking sector, I believe, and that's been the vast majority of your life.
Yeah, I worked in banking for 30 odd years, Paul, and just recently I was honest and upfront with my boss. I said, look, I'm finding I'm spending most of my time thinking about harness racing and less on banking. So that was time for me to say goodbye to banking and then look at getting back into a full-time position in harness racing. And fortuitously, this role came along at a great time.
Did you enjoy the banking sector, like that part of it? Do you and I would imagine it's going to stand you in good stead going forward with budgets and understanding, how things work, which we'll touch on that in a minute. But did you enjoy that part of it?
It did, Paul. 30 odd years, I've seen a lot in banking over that period of time. But what it did teach me is the importance of great service to the industry as it is now. And over that period of time, I lent a lot of money to a lot of people I didn't know. So it taught me a lot about managing people, managing relationships, and I see there's nothing too dissimilar to this role with harness racing.
Yeah, I would imagine you've got some stranger comes up, wants a lot of money. You've got to take a little bit of trust, and that's what you're probably going to be doing once you go to New Zealand, because you are going to be a fish out of water in a way, because you're not going to know a lot of the people. There'll be a few friendly faces that but a lot of them are going to be unknowns.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that as a strength, because I don't come over there with any preconceived ideas or biases, Paul. I'm just there to do a great job for Harness Racing New Zealand and to make a difference.
Yep. For the New Zealanders, I've got to know you, Brad, through the creek, basically on these pages, and through COVID. I think it was initially where we first sort of started up, having a few chats and getting the message out there. The creek and Racing Queensland, the one thing I love is their innovation and thinking, I suppose, outside of the square. You must have enjoyed the time there with them and to be, I suppose, able to do these things that little bit left of field, including the latest one they've got, the Drivers Invitational. Like, I mean, must have been so good getting a bit of spring in your step when someone comes up with a random phone call.
Yeah, look, it really is, Paul, and that's the part I've really enjoyed is that collaboration work that we did with Racing Queensland. We're pretty much on the same page with a lot of things that we don't always agree on some either. But for me, innovation is really the lifeblood of progress and it fuels hope. And I think that's what I was so pleased to be able to do with Racing Queensland, working collaboratively to come up with some new innovation, and with the latest one being the driver slot race, which is going to be unbelievable. So that innovation piece, it is a tough one to do. It doesn't always have to be technology. It can be a whole raft of things, but I really think that that's what hopefully I might be able to bring to Harness Racing New Zealand is that innovative approach to constantly reviewing how we do things and crap testing the status quo.
I'm going to throw you under the water, under the bus a little bit, not under the water, under the bus. Just a tick. The Drivers Invitational, are you able to explain to people that maybe watching this want to know about what you're going to bring to New Zealand? We definitely will get onto that, but it is something very, very innovative, and it has created a big stir. It was only been announced just over a week ago, and how that's going to work, and potentially how people may or may not want to be able to get involved with.
Yeah, Paul, look, this has been a 16-month progress, to be honest, to get it to this stage. And basically, with most slot races, it's for one race only, and it's usually aligned to a horse. We've flipped that around in this case where the slot series, so it goes over 20 races, not one, and you actually own or engage your own driver. So, and then your driver competes for 20 races over 2 nights, and the driver with the most points, that slot owner wins the prize money. So it's quite unique. It's quite innovative. It hasn't been done before. And you're right. Within 2 days of us launching that, I know we got a direct email from Bjorn Goop in Sweden wanting to inquire how he could possibly participate. And I must be honest, I actually didn't know a lot about Bjorn, so I wasn't quite sure of the origin of that email. But after googling, he's an institution over there, and of course we've also had contact with a number of drivers in Canada and America who also want to come out and participate. So I think it's a fantastic way to engage a broader audience, an international audience, and there's definitely going to be some flow on, effect from a wagering perspective as well.
Yeah, and this is over the ditch with the Kiwis. Of course, there's a guy in North America. Yeah, Jody Jamison and Timmy Tetrick, but his name just left me. I mean, Dexter Dunn. I was in all sorts there for a minute, Brent. He goes okay too. So I mean, if any of the Kiwis want to get involved, and that the part of this that is so engaging, anyone wondering, saying, "Oh yeah, so they'll only be the rich." You want syndicates to get involved. You want syndicates of people that can come up with a different idea to be able to encourage people to get Dexter, to get Timmy Tetrick, whoever they want to get, and come up with a different idea. It's not necessarily going to be, well, we've got the most money, we're going to give you X. There's so many other parts of it, isn't there?
There is, Paul, and I think slot racing is here to stay. But I think importantly, what we need to do is to broaden the opportunity for a whole raft of new people to participate as a slot owner. And you're right, certainly when we come to assess who will actually get the slots, there will definitely be a preference to syndication. So what we really want to see is somebody who's got $1,000 to spend can actually become a paid owner of a slot, where today it's probably much more limited to just a few people. So we're looking to broaden that, and ultimately some of these people, they may only start as a slot owner, but ultimately they may get into horse ownership as well. And you're right, I've already had contact from at least one international prospect who is going to put in a slot application form, and it wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple more.
Yeah, which is just so exciting for Harness Racing down under because, not Australia, not New Zealand, southern harness racing, because that's what we need to be able to promote the guys down south. They actually do a great job of it, and we'll get to those going forward. Must be hard for you to leave 16 months of work, and you're not going to be there for the end of it, but I suppose when the opportunity arose for this job, you had to take it.
Yeah, exactly right, Paul. And I'll still pop back over for some of those events. But I've really enjoyed the 4 years as chairman of the Creek and working collaboratively with Racing Queensland, and hopefully I can bring some of those best practices to harness racing New Zealand.
Yep, and well done to Racing Queensland and the Creek, because there are Kiwis, bet and win, heading across there this year for a trotting race, and we want all of those things. Radio to New Zealand. What excites you about New Zealand? What excites you about harness racing in New Zealand, mate?
I think the opportunity, Paul. A number of people have reached out to me saying that there's a whole raft of challenges, but there's challenges with any jurisdiction, and I really see challenges and opportunity as the same thing. So for me, what excites me the most is the opportunity. Certainly with Entain now coming on board as the wagering partner with TAB, they've definitely bred some wind into the sails of harness racing New Zealand, and I think there's more that we can do together over there to continue that growth phase. So for me, that's the part that excites me is the opportunity across a number of spectrums to really get some momentum back into New Zealand harness racing.
Yeah, it's quite unique too. The way New Zealand actually works. I was thinking about when I was jogging around before we did this interview. I was over there for Copy That's second New Zealand Cup win, and positivity. It was a great day. It's a massive day. It's the best day in harness racing, bar none. And you'll go a long way to the second Tuesday in November. It's got its own date. I was there for the Friday, and I went back for Grand Prix. Not Grand Prix. It might have been Grand Prix or Aces. I can't remember what it was back anyway. About 3 weeks later, and the board at the time, stake reduction, because there was a downturn in punting and things along those lines. And I think from memory, it was going to be $500 a race. The stake money was going to be cut off, and someone will correct me on it. But a lot of people were downtrodden. It was less than 6 months later, all of a sudden Entain came in, and there was more than just a little bit of spring in everyone's step. So that injection of I suppose money, if you like, from Entain, but also promise of money, I suppose, but also just something new. It's been great for the people over there.
Yeah, definitely, Paul. And the couple of times that I've been over there recently, I've definitely noticed, a spring in the step, a little bit more positivity. But I think there's still a lot more that we can do to add on to what Entain and the TAB have done for harness racing New Zealand in recent times. So that's all it needs, is something just to kickstart it, and then for us to go over and see what we can do to continue to grow and rebuild that momentum, but at some stage also to accelerate the growth that is definitely going to come for harness racing in New Zealand.
The peaks and troughs, it's funny because it is a smaller jurisdiction, if you like, albeit it's longer. I do know it's this from Warwick. Is Warwick in Queensland or New South Wales? I was trying to work it out.
It's in a great country town in Queensland, Paul.
It is, yeah. I know where it is. I stayed there, but from Warwick to Bendigo, that's the length of New Zealand. So I mean, that's how long it is, but it's very narrow. And you work with so many people, but you're not working with that many people either. It would be a little bit similar to Queensland in a way. You guys are all based in around Albion Park, but you're actually not. You're spread wide out. So I would imagine it's going to be a little bit similar, albeit it will be bigger than Queensland, but it'd be a similar sort of approach for you guys, for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. There's lots of similarities. That then again, there's also when I look at some of the numbers around harness racing in New Zealand, particularly down the South Island, where there's almost double the number of harness racing owners in the South Island as what there are thoroughbred owners, which is something completely different to what I'm accustomed to here in Queensland, where there's a much bigger number of thoroughbred owners as there is to harness racing. So there are some similarities, but there's also lots of different parts to harness racing in New Zealand compared to Queensland as well.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. Down south, it's a great place to go. And look, if you're here in Victoria or anywhere at the minute, you're thinking going down there for a holiday, you may not see it at its best right at the minute, but it's a beautiful part of the world. But it's so unique. It's so the one thing I loved when I went to Invercargill the first time I went there for track work, and they working together. Heaven forbid the thoroughbred people and the standardbred people, and even the greyhounds over there, they collaboratively work together to make the training facilities and that part work. It's wish a lot of other jurisdictions had learned from each other, but they're all trying to keep the racing part going down south.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's always been a challenge over this part of the world is how do the three codes work together. And I think when we do work together, that's when we get the best possible outcome. When we're working in isolation, it just makes it a whole lot much harder for racing to progress as much as it possibly can. And that's definitely something that I've picked up in my few visits across to New Zealand recently, is how the three codes do actually pull together, particularly down in the South Island, to make sure that racing survives and prospers, which is a great attribute for the Kiwis to have.
Racing, you've got a new look calendar that's already been announced prior to you coming in. That's basically through the TAB and working with Harness Racing New Zealand as well to come up with this idea, something that us Victorians are about to experience as well. It's not something new for yourself because coming from Queensland, you know where you're racing. Today you got the day off today because it's a Monday. Tuesday you're at Albion Park. Saturday night you're at Albion Park. That consistency, you must be excited that New Zealand, albeit not every track will be on set days, but it's started on that way.
Yeah, Paul, it's really important, and people want certainty, because the one thing that you and I know is that everyone looks forward to harness racing. Yep. So on a Tuesday, who races on a Tuesday. On a Wednesday, who races on a Wednesday. And people generally look forward to those days. But sometimes if they're not quite sure, which club is racing, it can provide a little bit of confusion, and hence people probably stay away sometimes. But I do like what they've done to the New Zealand calendar. Absolutely. And I think it will work. And in the next couple of weeks, I know they're going to launch Friday Night Lights, which is a fantastic innovation for New Zealand.
You're going to give me a heads up on what that is, or we have to wait till they launch it?
I can certainly give you a heads up, because I know it's in the public arena in New Zealand, and essentially what, in collaboration with the New Zealand clubs, Harness Racing New Zealand, Entone and the TAB, on Friday nights, every 15 minutes, you're going to have an alternate premium harness racing race in New Zealand. So it'll be Alexandra Park followed by Christchurch. Yep. Back to Alexandra Park. So every 15 minutes you're going to have absolute premium New Zealand harness racing, and I think that's going to really appeal to the broader wagering audience. Might take a little bit of while for it to kick in, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some major launch details come out the next couple of weeks on that.
And I will give Sky Channel a wrap here. I can be critical sometimes. Especially because even here on Sky 2, you will actually miss out on those. Get on the Sky Active, and I'm pretty sure it's every week. It's the harness, so it's an app you can get on your phone. I'm pretty sure you can get it on the computer, but you can watch it on a tablet anyway. And it's the harness part, and basically you get the guys from trackside. You get all their commentary when they start talking and things along those lines, and you are able to watch both of them. So for the Australian viewers, it starts 2 hours earlier than us. If you want to watch it, keep up to date with everything, learn something, start betting into it, which will help TAB turnover, both sides of the ditch. Get involved in that. And it is a lot of fun. And some people probably get frustrated by it because they'd like to watch one meeting and then watch another meeting. But I think a new way of doing it, like you said, into the pubs, Friday nights, trots, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, it's wall-to-wall premium New Zealand harness racing. And I was actually sitting at Addington on Friday night, and I was very pleased to actually see the harness racing coverage from Albion Park as well, Paul. So it works both ways, which is really important.
Oh, exactly. And it's one of those ones we need to grow. It's a little bit like Tuesday nights are going to be Cambridge on the North Island. Weather, I would imagine with the Sky footage and that, but Albion Park race on a Tuesday. Menangle, they're definitely finishing in later on a Tuesday. They're finishing underneath the lights, and it's going to be Shepparton here in Victoria. Start a bit earlier, catch up to those last couple of races at Cambridge, get people punting on quality TAB turnover. And hats off to Cambridge, because they're taking a hit, because Tuesday nights are not a popular night, but we're going to try and grow them everywhere we can. And they've rolled their sleeves up and said, well, we'll just embrace it.
Yeah, I think it's a really good approach, and it's a can-do can-do attitude, and I'm sure that's probably not too dissimilar with some of the clubs down in Victoria that have had to make some changes, and I'm sure there's really good reasons around why those changes are made. So I think it's important that we continue to test and learn and try something different, and find out what works, and if it does, continue, and if it doesn't work, change it.
Numbers, challenging numbers, especially on the North Island. We said about the south, down south, and that you've got your bigger breeders on the North Island, but there seems to be a limit on numbers. Do you have thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Certainly, we will be looking to try and encourage more horses to move to the North Island to support that new initiative on the Friday night lights. So I'm not quite sure what the origins are of the reduction of the horse pool in the North Island, but I know in conjunction with Entain and the TAB over there and Harness Racing New Zealand and the participants, we're looking to do some things to encourage more horses to head up to the North Island. But similarly, I know that from a wagering perspective, it's heavily under indexed in the North Island for the amount of population. So I know it's also incumbent upon our wagering partner to obviously encourage more people to come and participate and wagering on harness racing in the North Island as well. So it's a strength and a weakness at the same time, but a great opportunity to really grow the business in New Zealand by having that focus in the North Island.
Yep, and we've got to also maintain down south and that. But
definitely,
the way we are not talking about rating systems at all. You're not even going to utter a word out of the rating system. Is keeping a lot of horses racing. We need to keep those horses in New Zealand and not as many horses come to Australia, which I think there's already been that effect. I think there are less and less horses making their way to Australia. We need to keep the population going there in New Zealand. We want to keep Australian horses going back that way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just coincidental. In the last couple of weeks, I've actually had a couple of owners from here in Australia reach out to me and talk to me about the potential of actually them sending some horses back to New Zealand to race, and particularly with some incentives that they're going to put on the North Island, where there'll be heat and finals every fortnight. I think the finals are worth 30,000, so there is going to be opportunity there. And I think to your point, more horses leave New Zealand and come to Australia than vice versa. So there may be an opportunity to maybe swing that back a little bit down the track.
While we're on Cambridge and we're talking about races and innovation, from the Creek, what they've been able to do there with the Grins, the first $1 million slot race in the Southern Hemisphere, they were able to get that up and going. It's had its third year running. We had the TAB trot, or the TAB trot this year, which was just an outstanding field. It just was terrific. And going from there and then rolling all the way through to the Auckland Cup, Road Cup, albeit numbers did drop away. Super exciting to get so many good horses still partaking in that. I know some people are saying about field sizes are small, but got to stop and have a look. Like, we've got one of the best trotters we've seen in the Southern Hemisphere for 5-6 years. I don't know if he's better than any other horse or not. I hate comparisons, but he's an absolute machine and he's a draw, gets people there. Greg and Jess kept another pacer across, Better Eclipse, won the Auckland Cup. It's so exciting. It must be so good to have clubs like Cambridge prepared to step outside of the comfort zone, build these races, and then the flow-on effect that it does have, especially on the North Island right at the minute.
Yeah, too right, Paul. And it's a credit to David Branch and his team there for what they've done and how they've been able to build that program out. And certainly, the number of people that attended those race meetings was outstanding, and also to get the Aussies across there, participating as well is really important. So, well done to the team, ably supported by Harness Racing New Zealand. So I think that's what we need more of. So I think there's certainly an opportunity to continue to grow what we know in New Zealand, particularly around those iconic events like the Race for Grins and also the New Zealand Cup. And I think there's also an opportunity for us to have a look at, how we really breed some more energy back into the Road Cup and the Auckland Cup, which were, behemoth races. And I think there's some things that we can do there to reinstate them as well.
Yeah, and but I think there's a lot of people saying negative things. If you like, don't stop and have a look at it. It was brilliant. It might have been small numbers, but the actual product that people were putting on was outstanding, and it was watched right around the world, not just across the ditch. It was right around the world. New Zealand Trotting Cup, time-honoured race. We say about innovation, it stood the test of time. I hear people saying, "Oh, if it moved or if it moved," please tell me that you're more than happy to have it on the second Tuesday in November.
Yeah, absolutely. We shouldn't be changing anything that's absolutely working, Paul. And so yeah, no, I think there's an
Thank you.
opportunity. I'd love to sit down with John Hartnell, the chair of the Addington Harness Racing Club, and his CEO, and just see what else we can do to work together to change a few things, but certainly not the date. It absolutely works, and I know since my announcement, I've had lots of text messages around coming and staying with me when I'm over there in Christchurch, which has caused a bit of a problem because it's almost as if I have to rent out a motel. There'll be lots of Queenslanders, but it absolutely worked. It's an iconic event, and I know there'll be some positive announcements over the next probably 4 weeks or 5 weeks around New Zealand Cup as well.
It's one of those races. I know we are trying to work together, both sides of the ditch. I understand that. There's also people at loggerheads on certain things. It nearly needs to be the start. When people are trying to map out a grand circuit, you're saying about potentially Road Cup, Auckland Cups and those races being moved. Your New Zealand Trotting Cup into the Dominion Handicap on the Friday. That's it. Start them there. Work them out from that. Everyone can't take part in every race, but if they use those as a starting point, I think it's outstanding. And I encourage any harness person, if they've never had it on their radar, it's a must. It is the greatest week ever. And if Kaikoura can work in before it, go 2 weeks earlier because, have you been there before?
I haven't been to Kaikoura. No, I've mainly been down the south, Paul, around that Winton, Wyndham, Gore, Invercargill. So I haven't been to Kaikoura, but I've certainly watched it a few times, and it looks outstanding. That whole circuit that they have there is outstanding, and I know the wagering on those meetings is extremely strong as well.
Yeah, and they definitely do their wagering differently. One of the challenges over here, and it's probably a challenge that you've had just recently yourself in Queensland, training centres, areas for young people, I suppose, to be able to get involved in the industry. Woodend Beach is a unique place in New Zealand. The beach itself is outstanding, but also predominantly owned by a couple of people that allow other guys to be able to use the facilities there and train there. Is a training centre something that you've got a thoughts on, Brad?
Yeah, I do, Paul. And when I presented to the Harness Racing New Zealand board last week, is one of the points that I spoke to them about. That I think both islands do need a dedicated state-of-the-art education and training facility. How we go about funding that and bringing it to life is something that I'll work closely with the board and the government over the next period of time. But absolutely, that barrier to entry into harness racing here in Australia and in New Zealand is becoming more and more expensive, and I think we absolutely do need to set those centres up so that people can get into our sport. And I've noticed over the last period of time a number of younger harness racing participants leaving New Zealand and heading to Australia. So I think if we could somehow find a way to get those training centres in place, encourage people to stay there, and I know particularly in the North Island, our top 4 trainers up there are probably on not the best side of 50. So we also need to make sure that we put some plans in place in New Zealand so that our industry is built to last in both the North and South Island, and that will be an absolute key item that we'll need to solve for.
It is an interesting time for you to be moving down there as well, because All Stars and that juggernaut are definitely having a face change, if you like, things like that. There's going to be a little bit, a bit of a change.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think change is a good thing, Paul, and we just need to find ways to adjust to that. And I know Mark Purden is sort of looking to move to that North Island, but hopefully he won't be a complete loss to harness racing. That he might set up a little boutique stable up there in the North Island to go with his gallopers. But his son's doing a great job, Nathan, down in the South Island. But I do know that at some stage in years to come that may come to an end.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a little bit closer sooner than later, but we don't have to break that scoop. Anything else that I may have missed? I'm hoping I've ticked off on most of them for most of the people. I think, and hopefully people have been able to understand the sort of person you are if they don't know you.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Yeah, look, I'm here to help. And when I get across to New Zealand, I'll obviously make sure that you get updated with a Kiwi a Kiwi cap as well. I'm not quite sure you've got one there in the.
No, that is no. This one definitely is. Emily, this is called Harness Life. That's another of the websites that is there. No. Trust me, I know I'm all good. They got to send me over a core flute. You'll have to get that part done. But I got plenty of hats. You'll get me in all sorts of trouble for that one. That is for sure.
Exactly right.
And I want to look. Keep our these sort of chats open, especially if things do come up. It's one of those things that I think it's pretty easy now to get a bit of the messaging out there and things along those lines. So I'd like to be able to potentially call on you from time to time. Hopefully, you're not going to be lost to the odd social media comment back to me on my shows. Otherwise, my ratings will be down.
No, that's right, Paul. No, I do like to stay relevant, particularly on social media. Sometimes you can pick up some good tips on what you need to be doing. So no, I'll certainly remain in contact. And as I said, I'm really excited for the future of harness racing in New Zealand. I know there's some great opportunities there, and I can't wait to get over there and work with the industry people, the clubs, and Harness Racing New Zealand.
Yeah, no, thank you. You can take your hat off for a sec because now you can just be the co-host here. Larry, leap to fame. There was a comment like Adam Hamilton put a post out to the Kiwis that if you didn't know who he was, you can be a parochial Queenslander right at the minute. He was outstanding. And is it a trial? Was that a trial for the New Zealand Cup that second Tuesday in November? Is that the way they're going to be heading? Do you know?
Yeah, I think so, Paul. I actually caught up with the owner Kevin Seymour a couple of weeks ago for a coffee, and with my future in mind, I did make some inquiries around the prospects of Leap to Fame going to the New Zealand Cup, and I think there's very good prospects, and I think they're enhanced by how well he stepped away on Saturday night at Albion Park and ran a track record over the longer distance. So I think there's some really good prospects for the Kiwis to see Leap to Fame in flesh come the second week of November. Obviously, that's a call to be made by Grant and the connections, but I'd be fairly optimistic that Kevin would love to bring him over to New Zealand and just show the Kiwis just how good this horse is. I think, and I put it on social media a little while ago, I think he's the best horse in the world, and I know there's always conflicting views around that, but I just think he's a beast of a horse, and we've nicknamed him the Freak from the Creek because we want to have a little bit of ownership in him as well, being a parochial Queenslander. So yeah, we'd love to get Kevin and Kay across to New Zealand with Grant and Trista and the family, and I know it'll be something that they would look forward to as well.
Two of the biggest buzzes I've had in the industry, I've had quite a few since I've taken this job on. I'm very lucky, but Canberra and myself rocked up to Tamworth of all places to see him as a 3-year-old in a heat of the breeders go 54-5 around Tamworth. But the way that is like a coliseum, it was almost like we were driving him, and it was just one of the best buzzes. But into Dominion night, 600 from home, being able to be there. I had a camera, just seeing people clap this horse. They knew 600 from home. He wasn't stopping. He wasn't going out. And it was just one of the most brilliant nights to be at a racetrack, let alone, our love, a harness racing track.
Yeah, I agree, Paul. It was sort of one of those experiences that if you were there on that track that night, you'll never forget it. It was a unique experience, and one in Queensland we've waited quite some time. Blacks of Fate was the last one, so we've been pretty patient. But to see a packed house at Albion Park and the Queensland horse and a lot of new people in the industry. In fact, there's a lot of thoroughbred people that attended that race night as well. I know and them commented on social media that they couldn't believe the vibe and the excitement of being at the trot. So he's a generational horse, and I think everybody needs to make sure that you get out and watch him, appreciate him. They're rarity when they come along, and sometimes they come along and they leave pretty quickly. So I'd encourage everybody where you can get out and see this great horse race. And I know Kevin and Kay really encourage as many people to come and get their photos taken and engage with the team.
Yeah, absolutely. It was exciting. It's funny, isn't it? Because Just Believe hasn't been overshadowed very much in his later part. He was that night, and he won. I was trying to think who won the trot, and I was like, oh yeah, Harry. It was the Larry and Harry show. Just put your hat back on for 1 minute. There was one question: breeding, being such an integral part of of New Zealand. And again, I don't want you to make any commitments, but it's something. It is an area that you want to be able to grow.
Yeah, too right, Paul. And I was talking to a few people there recently, and it was an observation. It certainly wasn't a criticism. I just felt that, over a period of time, probably the Kiwis have lost a little bit of their uniqueness when it comes to the pedigrees. A lot of the Aussies have been buying up the fillies and mares and bringing them to Australia and breeding over here. So I just feel that uniqueness, that Kiwi uniqueness, has probably been diluted a little bit because of that. And I think there's then an opportunity. How do we get more of that uniqueness back into the Kiwi breed? But as you know, the sale averages are always the strongest in New Zealand, in Australasia, and that will continue. But I think there's certainly an opportunity there to get more of that Kiwi uniqueness back into those pedigree pages.
You'll be working with the studs, I would imagine. I wear a couple of hats there. Actually, only one over there, so it's okay. But yes. You'll be working with the studs to see how we can facilitate that.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. And I've already had a couple of contacts from one of the studs that you might be referring to, just to see how we can certainly work together. I know there's already been some initiatives that have been introduced, but there's probably a bit of a lag period there because those benefits won't flow through until those horses start racing as 2-year-olds. So absolutely, we want the studs to be confident about the future of harness racing in New Zealand, and we have some further insights that hopefully we can get from them as to what else might be possible, and continue to rebuild what has been a reduction of foal numbers over the last couple of years. And I know it can be done because Queensland have reversed the foal numbers in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's right. You've actually got that blueprint, and it is continuing to grow. Numbers are growing more and more, and as you say, there is a lag period from time to time, but it is on an upward trajectory and in a great way in Queensland, that's for sure. Trent Mason recently purchased a couple of horses. Unfortunately, one is a New Zealand breed that is going back the Me family, but also the Make Mine Cullen family as well will be going back there. So you'll start to get a little bit of uniqueness once those horses finish their racing career, but he's going to race them first for a while anyway. Just some news because you've got to do this. James Stevenson, of course, he's left All Stars now and going back to work at, I believe he's going to work for Ray Green. He's going to Lincoln Farm anyway. To work there, so there'll be a changing of the guard again with the All Stars. But well done to Nicole Aitken, training her first winner, Havate Arden. So Johnny Stiven would be very, very happy. She trained her first winner the other day at Invercargill. I think it was on the Friday afternoon. So well done to her, and also big shout out to Kirsten Green and Sean Daly. Congratulations on their wedding the other day. Kirsten Green is, Brad, I'll have to find it and I'll send it to you so you can tell. She did some video work for me, mic'd up down the beach, and it's very boring because she's got one horse by herself, and then she gets talking about the fact that there was a naked man with guys in white coats chasing him around the beach. And ever since then, Kirsten goes, I hope it's okay. First time I'd met her, and I was like, nah, she's, it's terrific. So it was great to see them getting married the other day. Sean actually bred an Inter-Dominion winner there. Brad, there's something for you, a horse called I Cast No Shadow. So,
by Diane Molly from the Gold Coast.
Yeah, that's right. So I thought you would know that one. And you've actually come at the best time ever, because there is now a meeting of the islands. I'm being tongue-in-cheek here too, because someone might turn around and correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm going to say congratulations to Zach Butcher and Laura Dalgety on their engagement. And it's now going to be the marriage of the North and the South. So it'll be royalty, Brad. You'll have to see if you can get an invite there. I'm trying to get an invite. I don't want to be a cameraman, but a bit of harness racing royalty in New Zealand with the North and the South getting hitched.
I like that idea, Paul. It sounds like I'm going to have to push out a whole heap of Facebook invitations over the next period of time to put myself on the radar.
On the radar and go from there. But I think well done. Zach recently drove his 1,000th winner, so yeah, big time. Brad, thank you. Really appreciate it. I think congratulations. You had to be very, very patient. I know people were saying it. Some people were going off weeks earlier and 2 weeks earlier, but to finally get it across the line Friday. I had my days mixed up, but last Friday, sitting down with the board, congratulations, great achievement, and look forward to catching up with you in the future.
Thanks very much, Paul. Great to talk to you as always.